And the mother's like, you let him do what he wants to do. He's not your son. And it's like, whoa, okay. I want to know more about that, but we don't learn about that. And that definitely really wasn't a spoiler. What up, everybody? It's your girl Sherry's Joy here with another episode of Bookmarked. Thank you so much for joining me in my discussion today about Home and Away by Rochelle Alers. This book was interesting. So I like baseball. I mean, I don't love it anymore, but I definitely like it. I played Little League Baseball. Thank you, shout out. And, those were days that I don't talk about. So anyway, this book is very interesting. It's about 370 pages. It took me around less than a week to read it. I have other things going on too. And it's actually pretty good. It's really good. So what made me read it? I saw it advertised one day and I was like, this sounds really cool. It's like throwback, it's baseball, it's about Negro Leagues. Like, why not? Shout out. So let's do it. Okay, so we meet Harper Fleming. She is the daughter and granddaughter and great-granddaughter of some baseball folks, right? So her great-grandfather played in the Negro Leagues back in the 30s, 20s, late 20s, early 30s, around the Jackie Robinson days. And she goes to her grandfather's house in Tennessee. She's in Chicago. She's a sports writer, and she kind of gets she gets done dirty, right, with her company. So she needs to take a break. And she goes down to Tennessee to be with her grandfather, who's just recently found his father's notebooks. He kept journals and notes about everything that he did in the Negro Leagues. And so Harper is very interested in that. She wants to write a book. So she goes down to Tennessee to stay with her grandfather for a few weeks. And she, it's summertime, and she's like, I'm going to write a book. I want to read these journals and I want to know what's going, I want to know what's going on with great granddad, and I want to write this book. So everybody's like, are you sure? Because there's some stuff in there that shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. And she was like, well, I'll change the names and the cities and the places of the things so that I don't put my family in, compromise my family. And, there you go. So she goes down there. Her grandfather's name is Bernard, and there's the journals and they're in order. So it's really interesting, this book, because we're reading a book within inside a book, right? You're learning about Harper, and we're seeing the development between her and her grandfather. But then at the same time, she's writing this story about her great grandfather, who she names in her book Moses. And we're learning about him and his experience in the Negro Leagues. So I actually really liked Moses' story more than I liked Harper's story. If we just had a book just about Moses and it was him only, it would be awesome. I'm not saying this book wasn't awesome. I'm just saying, I want to know more about Moses and what went on in his life, except for, what was going on in Harper's mind to write that. So that's what we have. This rating here that I'm using is my survey. I've talked about it. As I've said, its lowest score is 13 points. Highest score is 65. I have 4 sections: writing style, the plot, the character, the atmosphere, and vibes. So the beginning, let's talk about the writing style. So the writing style is very clear. I knew where I was at all times. I knew I was in Tennessee. I knew what was happening. I knew the time period for the most part, right? There are times where it transitions and I'm like, oh, wait, okay, you said Moses. So we're back in the 20s and 30s. Or, oh, whoa, we said Harper. So we're in present day now. Okay, so that got slightly confusing, but it was still clear on where we were. Like I didn't have to go back and like reread stuff. I just had to be like, I just had to kind of like rearrange my vision of the story. So that was good, and then it was very engaging in the atmosphere. It was very engaging. I knew where I was. The story itself, the writing itself, I could follow it. I was in the pages. It was a page turner. I was very much entertained. As far as the characters, I I don't know. There are some characters that didn't made sense, that made sense of being within Harper's story, but I felt like it was unfinished, right? So she is writing a book, and we are reading her book through her mind while she's writing it. So she starts off telling us about Moses, and we learn about Moses and how he's 18 years old. He's got a father who's a coal miner and wants him to learn, wants him to keep coal mining in the family. And Moses is like, absolutely not. His grades are phenomenal. He got into like Morehouse College and all these things to be a doctor or a lawyer, but he decides that he wants to play baseball. So his father is like really mad. Like, you are not going to play baseball and da da da. He's like, I'll do what I want. I'm 18 years old. And the mother's like, you let him do what he wants to do. He's not your son. And it's like, whoa, okay. I want to know more about that, but we don't learn about that. So that's kind of like, that's kind of a bummer, but it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. And that definitely really wasn't a spoil. So then he goes with the person who's picking him up to take him to Memphis to meet the manager, the baseball manager, right? The Negro of the team that he's going to be on. And so he meets her, and the part that doesn't make sense to me is that manager gets taken out, or we start to follow the manager and her side story. It's snowing out, which is interesting. It's not snowing in the book. It's snowing outside here. It's just weird. Okay. So this character, we follow her, right? We're taking out of the story and we follow her in the past tense. And we are having a conversation with her and, somebody else. And it's like their relationship is budding, or he's trying to bud the relationship. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And then we never hear from those characters like ever again. And I feel like that was like, well, what was the point of that? Like, I didn't feel like that made no sense to me. And so that, kind of deterred from that particular chapter of the book and that story plot of the story. It didn't make sense. Now, I don't know if that was on purpose, right? Like, did Harper, she came up with that, and then like as a writer, she was like, all right, well, we're going to scratch that. And that's why she didn't finish that plot or that thought. Or, was it brilliance to whereas it was like the writer, like Miss Alers, is like, I'm going to throw that in here because sometimes we do get off the beaten path as a writer. Like, I know that I've written I know that we have writer's block. We do get thrown off the beaten path. So maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I just felt like it didn't make sense in the story, and it kind of took away from, like I said, that chapter. But overall, the structure flowed very well. Like I said, there were a couple of times where I had to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in the past or I'm in the present, as I've said. And the character growth, I don't really find character growth, but there are character relationships, right? Because we're following Moses, and Moses he's already at where he needs to be. He's a star hitter. He doesn't have growth as a character, but he does build relationships with other characters. And I thought that was really cool. He builds the relationship with his teammates, and one in particular he gets close to. He builds relationships wherever he goes, right? Like, he walks into a bar and he's that guy that he'll talk to anybody, but don't double cross him or don't make him angry, because, then he'll be like really upset. then that leads me to my next thing, like with the plot. So he goes to this bar and it's prohibition times, right? So it's kind of mentioned about the prohibition stuff going on. So we have like some moonshine and corn liquor and stuff like that. So that is mentioned, but there is part of the plot that is like, why? This doesn't really need to be in here. Like, this doesn't have anything to do, we don't go anywhere with it. It's just kind of like mentioned. So I don't know, like it makes sense to maybe mention it because of the time period we are in. But it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't need to go into full detail, right? For just like those 2-3 pages. So that took away from that actual atmosphere for me as well, but still not a big deal. And that is where Moses meets Sally Ann and he builds that relationship with her. He actually saves her from some stuff and he forms a relationship with her, and that's the romance and all of that. There isn't really any romance in this book. I mean, it is alluded to. They do, you know, it does not really follow them completely. We do break off and we do follow Sally Ann for some chapters, but not for like a whole lot. And it's really not until the end of the book, which was disappointing for me. And then the actual ending, the way the book actually ended was kind of just, nah, okay. We have like another book. All right, cool. Out of 65 points, this actually scored 51 points. So I did give this a rating of a 4-star rating, which isn't terrible. It's actually really good. I mean, I was entertained by it. It was definitely a page turner and I could see everything. So it was, you know, I have no hard feelings about it at all. So thank you all for listening and taking the time to like, and don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment. You know, if you've read this book, let me know what you think about this book. If you're interested in reading this book, let me know. If you have any other suggestions or any other books that you feel like I could benefit from, let me know. I definitely have a very long TBR list, but you know, sometimes things get bumped up. So I appreciate all of you. I am Sherry's Joy. You can find me at all of the socials listed below. I am one half of the DigiKast, and you can find the DigiKast on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and Facebook, and all of those wonderful things. Thank you again. I appreciate everyone and love the world.